Hi guys, as promised, this is going to be a tutorial on bone broth and how I'm making it. And I've got all my stuff set out because I knew that if I tried to set it up while I was doing this, it would be a disaster. So, no baby yet. There's hi Shane. So I'm making bone broth. I'm showing everybody how I do my bone broth recipe. Hi Kelsey. And so I figured I would give a little tutorial on bone broth because it's super easy and it's something that we should like all keep in our freezer. And I'm making mine, we actually have some left over, but I'm making a new batch because after I have the baby is a perfect time to like really nail extra micronutrients and like all that good stuff. But honestly, everybody should have bone broth, not just people who are pregnant. I know Kelsey, me too. It's I'm ready for her to come because even just talking to you, I'm out of breath. So, you know, if you have bone broth in your freezer, you can use it when you're sick. You can use it just in your normal cooking in the place of like chicken broth or beef broth. You can use it all over the place. And honestly, if you go online to buy it, it's super expensive. Good quality bone broth is like obscene. Like 1 quart is like $8. It's nuts. So you can make it yourself and it's way easy. I am not a particularly awesome chef, but bone broth is piece of cake. So I want to show you, I'm going to be using my Instant Pots. I have 2, no shame there. I have 2 Instant Pots because one time, well, I bought one originally and then I loved it and then there was a sale and I was like, I'm gonna buy another one because it's on sale. So I did, and so now I have 2, but whenever I do something like this, I'm always grateful that I have 2 because then I can do a double batch, or if like I'm hosting Thanksgiving, then I can do one thing in one and one thing in the other. So anyways, that's why I have 2, but I'm gonna make a double batch of bone broth. So I have them set up. They're right there. There's my Instant Pots all set. And I have my ingredients out. I don't want my tripod to fall down. For bone broth. And so the key ingredient, right? You can go crazy in a lot of different directions with flavors and all that kind of good stuff. But there's one key ingredient to bone broth. It's bones. Bones, good bones. So when I say good bones, I mean that they came from a grass-fed, healthy, happy cow. Not happy anymore, but he was happy for a while. The reason I say that is because when you are consuming like meat on the bone, and fat, which there's a decent amount of fat in bone broth, and it's the good fat, the kind that we want, but whenever you're consuming like basically the nuts and bolts, like the foundation of an animal, that it's really important where that animal came from, right? Because like what makes up its bones, what makes up its fat is what you're gonna consume. So if it's been on a crap diet, if it's been sick, if it's been pumped full of like crazy medications or antibiotics, it's not the bone broth you want. You don't want to make bone broth with that. So if you get, my bones came from a local farm that does cow orders. You can order like a quarter cow or a half cow, that kind of thing. And so that's where I got my bones. But you can find these bones to use for bone broth at a lot of different places. You could go to a butcher. So, you know, most towns have a butcher and you could ask them if they have some. And they're not very expensive because they usually just have them stuffed in the freezer. When I ordered my quarter cow, they were like, do you want these bones? And they were like, if I had said no, I don't know what they would have done with them. They probably just gave them to the butcher and sold them for like barely anything. So anyways, they're not super duper expensive for the bones. There's different kinds of bones you can get. You can get like the big femur bones and like the hip chunks. You can get like knuckles. So I have 2 kinds. I have like this big chunk of bone right here, and then and there's a decent amount of fat on that. And then I have what the butcher actually labeled as soup bones. I'm guessing these are gonna have like a little bit of meat on them. I've got to unwrap them to see. So bone broth, super easy. You can do it in a slow cooker, an instant pot, a pressure cooker, whatever. The idea is though, you want it to either pressure cook or cook for at least 24 hours. So whatever safe setup you can do. I don't recommend the stove only because it has to cook for so long, unless you're just like, you know, a risk taker or something and you're like down with leaving the stove on for while you sleep. Hey Lauren, so I'm gonna use my Instant Pots because I'm not gonna use the pressure cooker. I'm actually gonna use the slow cooker setting, which is basically the same as like a crock pot. So really easy. All I'm gonna do, here's one particularly gnarly bone, it's still frozen. And then here's the other one, boom. And I'm gonna put them each in their own, and then I'm gonna break apart the soup bones. So I'm doing like a mixture, but you don't need to do a mixture. So look at that guy. It's got all the fat, all the craziness in there. And that's what we want. And the fat that comes from quality animal proteins has collagen in it, and that's what we want. So collagen's good for your skin, it's good for your hair, your eyes, your nails, your endocrine system. Like, it is magic. So I put, boom, one bone in there, one bone in there, and then I'm gonna use some of these soup bones that I got. These actually I thawed out yesterday because I was gonna try to do this yesterday, but then football happened, and you know, football happens. Yeah, so I was right. So the soup bones have a little bit of meat on them. That's fine. I'll pull it off and eat it after they've been cooking for a while. Not right now, that would be gross. So, like you can see, the soup bone that they gave me has bone, fat, and like a tiny bit of meat on it. So I'm gonna add those guys in there. See that one? So like the big gnarly ones are like really great, and then these ones are good, but I would want to definitely mix these soup bones with those crazy gnarly bones. Hi Lynn, how are you? I'm making bone broth. I'm showing everybody how to make bone broth. So easy. So this is another soup bone. One of the things that is good and bad about bone broth is that it has a distinct smell. A lot of times people are like, what is that smell? Because it's just a very different smell. So I'm just kind of warning you. Here's some more of my bones that I'm adding to my pots. So I just like to put these in first because I'm gonna add everything else after. Boom. This is probably actually overkill on the number of bones. This is probably enough to make 3. I'm just like, this is gonna be really like serious. I probably can strain it and then make a second batch. We'll see. With the same bones, depending on how they break down. So I'm gonna wash my hands real quick. Okay, so I've got my bones in my pot, bones in this pot. I'm using 2 different kinds, and now I'm just gonna add the other stuff that you add for bone broth. So I could simply cover this with water and cook it for 24 to 48 hours on low, and it would be still bone broth. So don't feel like you have to add a bunch of stuff. Ultimately, all that good collagen, all the good micronutrients is gonna break down into the water when you slow cook it. So if you don't have this stuff, then it's fine. Doesn't matter at all. But bone broth, just like any other broth, if it's full of flavor, yay, like that makes it taste even better. So I like to use 2 tablespoons of good apple cider vinegar in each one. So we're gonna go, I'm pouring it over here because I don't want to spill it. 1, 2, 1, 2. Apple cider vinegar has a lot of benefits, health benefits. I'm not going to go into it right now, but you should. Sometimes people do shots with it actually when they're sick. So I'm going to put 1 stalk of celery in each one. Leave the greens on. So if it's got the leaves on it, totally great. Leave those guys on there. Throw that in there. I'm going to do 1 carrot in each one. And you can eat these vegetables after they cook for a while. They'll probably break down a lot. So I'm just going to throw one of those guys in each one. Again, we're just adding flavor. That's all I'm doing, nothing crazy right now. I'm gonna put 2 bay leaves in each one, optional. But bay leaves are awesome when you're doing slow cooking and broth. It just adds like that sort of like deep, like rich, vegetable-y kind of slow cooker awesomeness. So 2 bay leaves are going in each one. Ah, I dropped it. Okay, good. All right, and then this is those are like sort of the optional ones that I would say like you might not have to add. These are the ones that I would absolutely add. So I'm gonna do a giant white onion, and because I really like the flavor of onion in my broth, like onion and garlic. So these are like non-negotiables for me. I always put them in broth. So what's nice is when you're doing broth, who cares how you chop it? You can even leave the skins on. It doesn't matter at all because you're gonna strain it before you store this in the freezer anyways. So who cares? Leave, I'll take the skins off just in case I feel like eating some of this stuff, but you can certainly leave it on. And again, who cares how you chop it? Throw those guys in there. So I'm doing a half of a white onion in each one, in each batch. Really rough chopped, who cares? And then for me, key ingredient, garlic. So again, I'm just flavoring it my style. So like this is kind of like a traditional soup flavor, but like I've had bone broth. My friend made one that was like more of like an Asian flavor and it was awesome. I've had bone broth that like, you know, kind of has sort of like a citrusy flavor and that's really good. So all I did was cut that garlic like that. Lynn, I'm not sure if you're the one still watching, but you're an amazing cook. So don't hate on me for whatever madness I'm doing right now. So I smashed the garlic. I'm just gonna throw that in. I'm not even taking the skins off because I don't care. I'm just smashing it and throwing it in. It's just for flavor. And so I'm just kind of like rough chopping off like the stump of the garlic clove just to kind of get rid of it. But then the remaining garlic, I'm just smashing and throwing it in there. And it's making my eyes water. Okay, so I've got lots of garlic. I think it's the onion that's made my eyes water, not the, Okay, garlic. Yeah, Lauren, you need some to make some bone broth soon. My kids actually like it. So this is just my tip. In a minute, I'm gonna add the water. And of course, in any broth, sorry, my eyes. My eyes are watering. In any broth, you definitely want it seasoned, right? Salt and pepper and stuff. But because I don't decide in advance what I'm gonna use it for, I only add like a little bit of salt while I'm cooking it right now. And then we add salt to taste when we're using it. So like, for example, like if I'm just gonna do a mug of bone broth, I tend to like heat it up straight from the freezer and then I just crack some Himalayan pink salt on top and then it's salted to the right amount. So I'm not like committing to a salt level. And then maybe if I'm using it in cooking, like I can just add salt based on what it is that I'm cooking. So boom, that looks really good. Those are all the things that are in my bone broth. So I'm, again, sticking with super traditional. I put 2 different kinds of bones in there. I can smell the vinegar too. I put 2 kinds of bones. I put 2 tablespoons of vinegar, apple cider, organic, good vinegar. And then I put a carrot, a big one, a stalk of celery, a half of a white onion, and some garlic. And now what I'm gonna do is I am going to cover them with water. I'm gonna put them on my Instant Pot. Hey, Olivia, I'm teaching everybody how to make bone broth. I'm going to cover these with water, put them in my Instant Pot, set it to slow cooker, and I am gonna cook these for 24 to 48 hours. When you finish cooking them, you will notice that there's stuff floating in there. Yeah, I think the vinegar does help it break down better, Lauren. And So you're gonna notice if you cook bone broth for the first time, there's floaters in there, there's all sorts of stuff. That's okay, because you're gonna strain it. Again, like if you wanted to eat something out of there, that'd be totally fine. But I typically strain it into, you're definitely gonna wanna strain the bones out and like the chunks of vegetable that have like kind of like fallen apart in there. But you're gonna strain it. So don't worry about any floaters or chunks. The one thing I didn't add to this, you could totally add, would be like parsley or like chunks of herbs and stuff like that. I couldn't commit to a flavor, to be honest. I feel very wishy-washy right now in my current pregnant state. So even though I have parsley and I have fresh rosemary and I have a bunch of stuff, I just couldn't commit to it. So I'm not putting that in there. But final note, remember when I told you like all the good collagen, all the fun stuff that's in bone broth that's really healthy for your body, part of that comes from the fat. So bone broth inherently has like a decent amount of fat in it, and that's okay. You don't want to strain the fat off. I know that sounds weird. You want that fat in there. So if there's a chunk, throw the chunk of fat away. But hey, I miss you, girl. I want to see that baby bump. You and I are bump buddies. So you don't want to, you can throw away chunks of fat, but if you let your bone broth cool off, you will notice that the top has like almost like a layer of fat, and that is fine. When you heat it back up, it will reincorporate into the liquid. So fear not, that is 100% exactly how it should be. So you don't want to strain that fat off. That's really important. Leave that in there. You can take out chunks of fat, floaters and stuff like that, but like don't take off the actual layer of fat once it's cooled down. That's all, a lot of the goodness is in there for you. And so when I freeze mine, I use these like muffin tins. They're silicone muffin tins, and they're in 1 cup size portions. And so what I do is after the bone broth is cooled, I strain it, I pour it into those muffin tins. I'll show you some pictures of that when I do it tomorrow or the next day. And then I put them on a cookie sheet, stick it in the freezer. Cookie sheet's important because silicone doesn't have a lot of hold to it, so you can't just like place that in the freezer. It's like a recipe for disaster. So put it on a cookie sheet, stick that in the freezer and let it freeze. Then you can pop those guys right out of the silicone tin and put it in like a container to store in the freezer. And why I love that is because then you can take 1 cup worth of bone broth and either put it in a mug or add it to something, and you don't have to commit to like some giant like freezer storage container where you have to like thaw, I don't know, like a half a gallon of bone broth just so you can have 1 cup. Super obnoxious. You're not going to do that, and it makes a mess. So if you can just freeze them into small portions, then that works way better. And then also you are going to want to make sure that as you're pouring your like cooled but not cold bone broth into these like muffin size containers, that they get like a even disbursement of the fat, right? Like you don't want to just have some that are like all fat and like this much broth. So try to like stir it up and incorporate it. You might want it to be warm when you're actually pouring it into the silicone so that the fat's mixed in equally, and then you can add it to those individual size. Like Lauren, you said you use mason jars. Like that's perfect. Like you want something that you can grab. So even like my son Logan, he'll be like, I want to get some bone broth. And I can be like, go get yourself a bone broth cube. And I know that sounds crazy, but he does it. He'll go get a bone broth cube, stick it in a mug, microwave it for 45 seconds, crack some salt on top, and drink it. And that just makes my heart really happy. So anyways, that's it for bone broth. If you guys watch this later, because I know I did this sort of at a weird time, but we have football playoffs tonight, so I couldn't do it later. I know like in 2 hours, that would be like the best time. Everybody's around on their phone. So if you watch this later and you have questions, let me know. Otherwise, I'm gonna go ahead and cover these with water and get them rolling in my Instant Pot. And I will post some update pictures either tomorrow or the next day, or if I have a baby, then I'm not going to post those update pictures. I'm just going to have somebody else come here, and maybe my mom or somebody has to turn off the bone broth and store it for me. So anyways, 24 to 48 hours slow cooking, or you can use the pressure cooker feature and it goes in a couple hours. And so depending on your pressure cooker, you're gonna wanna look up what setting to use. So hope that was helpful. And yeah, guys, I will talk to you later. Let me know if you like this. Bye.